Welcome to the Ski Classics podcast series Badkastain to Hafjell. Ski Classics is the long-distance ski championships with 35 pro teams. In season 15, there are 15 races in 11 different locations. The Pro Tour brings together the best skiers in the world and a huge number of recreational ski enthusiasts who aim to push the envelope. This podcast series takes you deep into the world of long-distance skiing by analyzing the sport, portraying the legends, and making you a better skier. Good day to you all listening to the Ski Classics podcast, Badkastain to Hafjell, and this is actually the first episode of the year. And we're going to take a look at the upcoming winter season, which is season 15 to be precise. Next winter, there will be 15 races on 11 weekends, and that'll be a hectic season for all the skiers involved. I'm Teemu Virtanen, your host, and my guests today are the CEO of Ski Classics, David Nilsson, and Emilie Fleten, Teemu, a regular podium skier and last winter's Vasaloppet winner. We'll talk about the new season and sum up the one just behind us. But Emilie, let's start with you. How are you doing? Now we are getting close to the summer season. How's your life right now?
My life is pretty good. Nice to be here in this podcast. My training hasn't been like the best in May, but hopefully it will be better for the summer and continuing to just be better. So life is good, but my shape is not the best.
You still have time, but did you actually take a break? An actual break? A lot of skiers take like a week or 2 weeks off, not doing anything.
I did take a break, but I was like being active and skiing and touring, but it was nice to just stay home for a bit. I felt like I'd been traveling the whole winter, so I did take a break from traveling, but I haven't been laying on the sofa for 2 months. I haven't been doing that, but it's been a nice break and to see friends and not be so serious with the training. It's been good.
But this summer, of course, will be training for you, or something else as well?
It will be most training, yes, absolutely.
And then, David, what about you? I mean, I know that you have all kinds of activities besides Ski Classics, but I think you've been really busy because wrapping up the season, coming up with the new calendar, which is now pretty much finalized. How have you been?
Thank you, Teemu. No, I've been fine. It's been, as you say, an hectic part for us. When the season ends, normally at the final event, then the skiers might get a little bit rest, but we have to wait until we make everything ready also for the next winter. So our resting period comes, we can say, after the calendar launch is done. So this is kind of the final of the crew season, we can say, the launch of the next. So that's how we work.
Speaking of the rest and summer season, what are you going to do over the summer?
Me?
Yeah, how are you going to relax?
No, I guess doing some fun things with my family and maybe going down to Biarritz, which is one of my favorite places in Europe, to hang and get a little bit no winter season feeling, so to say. And then, of course, there's a lot of things to do and see in the summertime, so I will be occupied.
Indeed, you both will be very busy this summer, but let's talk about the upcoming season and also sum up the last one. And we'll start with the last season first, so that'll be next for us. And David, let's start with you, talking about the last season, season 14, really a tough year for many athletes, a long season, but a great one as well. But sort of your overall take on that when you go back and sort of walk down memory lane and you think about the last season, what are kind of the takeaways from that?
I always get that question, and it's so many aspects from my point of view. It's the skiing, the sport, the events, the broadcasting, the media. It's so many different angles to look upon a season. But of course, from a sport perspective, I am extremely happy to see Emilie winning Vasaloppet, which is one of I think, with so close, so long time, and being so good for so long time, but not taking that last step. That was a really, really fun day for the Tour, as well as Emil Persson on the male side winning so many races in one season. So those two, I would say, were the height sport-wise. But then otherwise, in general, we had actually quite good luck with the weather this winter, and it's not always the case. So we're used to having also a little bit more struggling, but this year we had more or less good weather at most events. It started a little bit tough in Bad Gastein, where we had quite heavy snowfall there on I think it was the Sunday, but it ended in style in the final event of Summit to Senja with perfect weather and great pictures and so I think it was good season and good balance of the calendar we had in 14.
And what about this was the first season after the pandemic, COVID, which those years were so different. So how did that kind of feel when you finally had a chance to have a full season without those restrictions?
I think you forget fast how it was before. But the struggling we had the seasons before was quite hard, and also, as I said, sometimes that what maybe felt most was that kind of the happiness of traveling, being on a tour, being with a team or whatever. Then that one had a thorn in the side, so to say, during the pandemic. So just to be kind of free again. On the other side, I think many skiers learned, how not to get sick, if I say like this, that it's a lot of lessons that I think that many people learned also from this extreme pandemic, but you can bring it to, try to stay healthy and in every year as well. So, well, we're happy it's over.
And then, Emilie, what about you when you look back on this season? And of course, Vasaloppet was the highlight. But when you started out and you had the full season ahead of you, what were kind of your thoughts, and how much did those change over the winter?
I think first of all, the calendar looked really good. I think Ski Classic has been really good at planning the season through. So it's really nice to be. You can stay down in Italy or in all January, and then you go home and go one turn back to Europe before you turn back to Norway and Sweden. So the calendar looked really good. For me, the season was good. I struggled a little bit with sickness, through all the first period of the season. David mentioned something about learning how to not get sick, but I've have managed to get corona every January the last two seasons. So I don't know about that.
But you recovered quickly, and you were able to win Vasaloppet. So how was that? I mean, that's sort of a big goal for every skier. And when you finally were able to win a race, because you were chasing after that as well, the first victory, and then Vasaloppet must have been dream come true.
Yeah, I think I spent the first all December and January just stressing about this, when do I get to win my first race, and really stressing out. And then I got COVID right before Marcialonga, and I that was a huge step back for me. But then I felt like in Orsa my shape was getting better and better, and Vasaloppet I felt really good. So it was just a big relief to manage to win a race. But I don't think I kind of gave that I actually won the Vasaloppet that many thoughts. It was just being able to win a race. But the weeks after, I actually won the Vasaloppet, and that was a unreal experience. So much fun, and something I will remember forever.
In addition to that, you placed a third in the overall competition, the champion competition. Were you happy with that? Or because I remember that you said before the season that you aimed to be number one.
Yeah, of course. I think I got a little bit hard start with just getting ill right before Bad Gastein, so I didn't race the team competition there. So I lost some points there, but right before I think Marcialonga, I was second in the second, so I thought like, okay, this is actually possible. And then I got ill, so I kind of, when I got ill before Marcialonga, I kind of gave up the yellow jersey. But of course, a little bit disappointed, but you have to stay healthy and race all the races if you're gonna be able to fight for the yellow bib.
And would it be safe to say that that is your goal for the upcoming season?
Absolutely. So I have to learn how to stay healthy, I think. And then I will for sure try to fight for the yellow jersey.
So, David, if that was a big challenge that Emilie had to face, stay healthy, what was the biggest challenge for you as an organizer in terms of the whole season when you think about season 14?
Regarding what Emilie said, I always remember Britta Johansson-Nogren when she said once what was the key for her being so good, so consistent. She always said, I knew how to stay healthy. So Emilie, maybe you should call Britta and get some advice.
Absolutely.
From our side, it's a lot of things all the time, but in general, I think we had a quite smooth season. So we felt season 14 was really good, and from our side now, second season that Anton has been in as a sport director has been helping a lot, me especially, that we have, so to say, two persons running the tour and speaking day out, year round about all the details there are. So I'm very happy to have Anton on board as well.
And what could have been your highlight if Vasaloppet was Emilie's highlight for you last season?
I think for different, I mean, everything. There's so many good things. So if I mention something, or someone think I should have said something else that I probably forget. But anyway, when you have the final event, the Summit to Senja, which was a new event, becoming then the event of the season, and the weather we had, but in that event, the thing that impressed me most was all the people in Finnsnes. Where I was actually, you never know when it's the first time we go to a place and to an event to see what's so to say the frame around it. And when we came to Finnsnes to see that there were actually, as they told me after, that there were more spectators than live in the area. So there was a lot of people. It was really like, I don't know what Emilie said, but when they came down to Finns, it was like a little bit, not shocked, but like, wow, what a nice atmosphere it was, like giving high five before finishing and stuff like that. So I was really, really great to see that the area around in that part of northern Norway, that they really came out of their houses to support the skiers. I think that was great.
Yeah, I wasn't there myself, but Guy and I, we commentated on the race, and it looked really nice. And also we said goodbye to some of the great skiers there, and those were really emotional moments, of course, Anders Aukland being one of them. But really many happy memories from that particular race, I think, and probably for you too.
And actually not so many other, because I would say we're very happy to have it that way, but very few are quitting, which is good. So of course we got Anders a little bit special celebration of being still the grand old legend of ski classics, being what we kind of built the sport around when we started the tour 15 years ago.
Indeed, but I think we should start talking about the upcoming season. Indeed, it was really a great last season. There was something wonderful, and I think the next one will be as wonderful, or maybe even much bigger than this season. So that'll be next for us. And David, let's get started with you. We have, as I said in my intro, 11 weekends, but 15 races. That's probably more than ever before, correct, in terms of the number of races. Why that number?
Yeah, I mean, from our side, when we started the tour, what's very important is to have the best skiers present in every race. That's something we feel is very important for the tour, like you can see in of course in a cycling race, because if you don't show up one day, you're disqualified from Tour de France or Giro d'Italia. So of course they also have the big stars, but for us that's important. Like we can see it in biathlon, that most skier or athletes are in every race, and that's been important to us, not to make a calendar that is too heavy for the athletes, because they are kind of also, or our stars. That's what you want to see. So that's been important. And then when we started the tour, we were thinking like maybe 10 events, and then we expanded it to 12, and we see that we still kept the skiers on board. And then we tried 13, and we were even in China that year. And at that time, we had 13 not only events but 13 weekends. And our feeling after that was the 13, including the travel to Asia, was a little bit too much at that time. So we also said that maybe 12 is a good maximum number. And then a couple of years later, we tried to actually have what we now call, I think it was Andreas Nygård who came with the name, but what we call back-to-back racing that he talked about. And then that we actually tried to have a Saturday and Sunday event. And when we did that, we kind of changed the limit from number of events to number of weekends. And so now we have an ambition to have 10 to 12 weekends, and then we will see how many events we can manage to have within those weekends. And the coming year, as you say, it will be 15 events, and we feel that we have got a quite good weight balance, I would say, of the tour, that we have, a nice start off in December, and then something happening, an important part of the January, and then in March and February and April, that we have a little bit spread out with not too heavy at a certain point of the year. But then also this will come later to, I guess, the grand finale, which is kind of our new concept, so we can speak later. That's I think very exciting.
So Emilie, when you listen to David and you know the calendar now, so what do you feel about that? You mentioned earlier that the last year's calendar was really good, but how do you feel about this one now?
Feel good about the next season calendar. As an athlete, I want to race a lot, so I think it's nice that we have that many events. It's going to be really exciting about with a new grand finale, but it looks really good. I like that it's kind of a lot of races, but not too much. So I think it's going to be a really nice season.
What about the distances? We have races from 10K all the way up to 100. That's a huge range.
Yeah, I like the variation. I think it's good. I think it's good for different types of athletes, and with the shorter distances, hopefully some other skiers, not long distance skiers, will try to race, hopefully. And it's nice to have the differences between the races.
Speaking of which, David, what is the idea behind the different distances? Because 10K, of course, is quite short, but there's also reasoning, for that as well. Why have you guys selected certain type of races that are really short?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Ski Classics is about long distance races, no doubt about that, and we have defined it to 50K plus. On the other hand, and we would like to go from A to B. That's kind of what if we could choose, that's kind of what the normal Ski Classics would be. But then, of course, we also want to start in December, and knowing the situation of snow around there, we have to adapt to what is, so to say, not too risky to plan. And that's maybe why we have a little bit shorter races in December. But on the other hand, those are back-to-back, Saturday, Sunday, both weekends. So these distances in total is 50K anyway, so to say, more or less. So, and then with the ITT format, we tried it some years ago, because we can see that it's two aspects of it. One is that to see, hopefully, that maybe it's not always the case that there's a new athlete winning, but it's kind of opening up for also a little bit different character of an athlete's speciality to be able to perform. So if you're in a pro team and you feel maybe one race doesn't suit you too good, maybe there's another one that suits you as well. So everyone with different capabilities has a possibility to shine. So that's one thing we have in mind. But then, of course, I think it's quite interesting with this ITT, and this is the first time we will have two ITTs, so we'll see what the feedback is after the season about that. But I think a little bit variation, but when we can, of course, we want to have as long races as possible, and that's of course where the grand finale this year with the 100K, I feel is quite important for us to end in style.
And for those audience members out there wondering what the ITT abbreviation stands for, that's individual time trial. That's what it means, a shorter race. But let's get to the season itself. It starts from Bad Gastein.
Maybe Teemu, we should give we have three other abbreviations. One it's what we call criterium. That is when you have a looping race, which is a loop of more than 5 kilometers, and then we have the super criterium, which is not in the calendar this year, but might have in pre-season and post-season events. Then it's a looping race of less than 5K, and then also of course the PTT, which is a pro team tempo that we have the first event in Bad Gastein, first day.
Exactly, and that's the one we're going to talk about now, the PTT Bad Gastein in Austria. That'll be on lördag, December Swedish Saturday. I'm just reading this calendar, and it's in Swedish, but of course Saturday, which is lördag in your language. December 9th, and the season goes all the way to April 13. So it's a long season. Bad Gastein PTT, let's get started from there. 15K race, what about that, David?
Yeah, I mean, then to start off the season, I think the PTT makes sense because it's to present all the pro teams, not only the big stars like Emilie, but also the maybe not so famous and new athletes coming into them in smaller teams, that they also get their claim to fame, so to say, that we actually present all 35 pro teams once per year. I think that's very important to keep everyone motivated, if I say like this. So I think for the pro team tempo, it's kind of like where the actors of the play is presented each season. So we have it, and it's I think it's an interesting format, and I guess Emilie have to say that, but the feedback we get is that the skiers really like to do it because it's it's so much individual, and you're as a skier, I think, quite always often thankful to your pro team, and then being able to actually compete together once per year is, I think, is good for the morale inside the teams and quite fun. So yeah, the pro team tempo is a little bit different, but we think still that it makes sense to have it once per year and to open up the season.
So Emilie, would you agree with David in terms of the PTT?
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think it's a great way to start a season. You kind of set an atmosphere in the team, like it's kind of a team building. So it's really nice to start off the season with that type of competition.
And then day after that, on Sunday, December 10th, that's Bad Gastein Criterium, and you just David told us what the Criterium stands for. That is a 35-kilometer race, and that was the same location as last year. So now, both of you, your comments on the actual location and those races.
Emilie, maybe you think, what's your being in Bad Gastein the first time last year as a skier? I guess what's your take on that, Emilie?
I was there only for a few days. I just came the day before the race on on Sunday, and left the same day. But I think it was I think it's a good way to start a season with racing in loops, because you kind of don't have to it's nice way to start a season because you don't have the service is really easy to do in that kind of kind of race. So it's a nice way to start the season with that race. Yeah.
So David, when you guys considering this location for the season opening, because it has varied quite a lot. We've had Pontresina, Usha, also Livigno, lots of different places now. Bad Gastein, second time in a row. what criteria do you usually have in mind when selecting a place to start the season?
Yeah, if we turn it the other way around, we have at the moment, there's 4 events that's been with us all calendar. So those are our cornerstones, the Grand Classics events. And when we have those, we kind of build the tour around those 4 cornerstones. And then we try to find the right way to open. But maybe I should have mentioned in the beginning, but one very important factor for us is to make a sustainable calendar. So we work a lot, try to keep, to minimize the amount of travel as much as we can to do our part of this. We still have a bad conscience. I think a lot of us traveling around Europe every winter feel like, this guilt of the environment, stuff like that. So of course we try to make the impact as less as we can, and there is an important thing to how we set the calendar, where we have 2 events quite close to each other. So you make one trip, you make in December then 4 events in one trip. You can say that you stay also for the next weekend. So that's a very important. And for us, this environment, this green or the sustainability of it is not only is of course the reduce the travel, but the sustainability is also to reduce the costs for the pro teams to be able to be at the place where, to stay longer time, do more events at one location, make it also easier to keep the budget for the teams and the tour as well. So I think that's part of it. And being in Badgerstein, of course, the opening weekend, it's a little bit like the grand finale, that we want to have a little bit more maybe connection with the audience, we can say, on site. That's something we like in these opening places, where we are a little bit more tight event than maybe when we go from A to B at longer distances.
Indeed, a really good point. And speaking of which, when after Austria, those 2 races, right after that, La Venosta Criterium and La Venosta ITT in Italy, those will be on December 16th and 17th. Also, back-to-back races week after, very close to the place week before. But what about those? La Venosta's been around in the different formats, but it's been around for a couple of years now. So what do you guys want to say about La Venosta and those 2 races?
I mean, Venosta is in the Lang Taufertal, and the Melago, where is the center village, is a quite small place, but a very beautiful place, is they're building it around cross-country skiing. So it's actually a fantastic place to go also as a tourist, and another time of the winter to actually quite easily connect to the tracks, and it's a very beautiful landscape there. So no, but the criterium is a Saturday race. I think it's a good way to, as once again, like we did the weekend before, to open up the season and to bring back the ITT, which we tried a couple of years ago, to actually go from Capron to Melago Alm. We felt that we kind of missed it the last season, that it was so, when we already are there, and since the Saturday is not so long event, we felt to have a back-to-back there is quite natural, and to actually be able to do, as I said before, four events before Christmas, then a really, really good start of the season. And the ITT, by the way, new for the ITT this year is that we will have a reduced points there, because we have 2 of them. So it will be Saturday will be a 200-point event, and the Sunday ITT, as well as the other ITT coming up later, is a 100-point event, in order, since they are the first year we have 2 of them. So then
and
we'll
Emilie,
see if that was right.
What about you? What do you think about that? La Venosta, it's a tough course there, and also high altitude.
It's a really tough course, and of course the altitude, it's challenging, but as David says, it's a really beautiful place, so it's nice to come back there. And we have been racing there for a couple of years now, so it's a really nice place, and I like to race there, most because of it's so beautiful, but also because it is a different race because of the altitude and the course.
And then after those 4 races in December, there's a break, of course, the Christmas break and the New Year's. And then the tour continues in mid-January, January 13th to be precise, and that'll be Pustertales Ski Marathon. Only 1 race this time around. in the past 2 years, there's been 2 races there, of course, Pustertaler and then the mountain Piazza, that really, really tough challenge. That's skipped now, David. What's the reason for this?
Yeah, I mean, when we expanded the calendar from 14 to 15 events, we felt to go to 14 to 16 was a little bit too much. And then, of course, you have to look at many different aspects and see. And I'm quite sure the Prato Piazza, like the Alpe d'Huez and Tour de France, will be back in the calendar, but maybe we try not to have it every year this time. And we already miss it, so to say, because it was such an iconic race. And to be able to have that was really, really great in the Tour. On the other hand, we also have very good weather, and it's not always the case there. So then Prato Piazza is much more tricky to deliver if we have not sunshine, so to say, up there on the high altitude. So we just had to make a decision from this year, and we're still expanding the calendar. And then we felt this year it will be no Prato Piazza, but we hope to see it soon again.
But Pustertale ski marathon itself has become one of the favorites among skiers. Yeah. It is a beautiful race. Emilia, what do you want to say about the race?
It is a beautiful race, but it is also a very tough race. I think now missing out the Prato Piazza, it's going to be not, because that weekend has been really, really tough. So it's good, but I'm going to miss Prato Piazza. But I think Pustertale is a really hard race. It's a really nice way to start like the longer races. Yeah, it's a cool race, tough race. And nice to race from A to B. So it's a good race.
It's a 62-kilometer race.
It's a race team where I think we should recommend for all the recreation skiers, because it's really beautiful to go there and go to Südtirol. And if it's one race I kind of would recommend that most people maybe haven't tried or heard about, it would be Pustertal Marathon.
Indeed, that is really a nice location, 62-kilometer race. But why is it so tough? I mean, Emilie, you keep saying it's a tough race. What makes it so tough?
I think maybe it's because of the high pace from the start. It's like kind of easy at the start because we go a lot of downhill, but then the pace is really high. So you will feel it in your muscles the day after. It's and then you come down to Toblach, and then are you racing up for a bit and then going down again, so you get that the high pace again. So it's really tough, just for the muscles, because it's a high pace, much more high pace than you maybe think it's gonna be.
And then week after the Pustertaler, skiers face the first and only Swiss race in the calendar, Engadin La Diagonela. That'll be on January 20th. That's been around for a long time now, 11 years or so. We all remember the story, how it came to be. But now, David, what do you want to say about that race? I mean, it's been around for so long then, and so many things have been said about Engadin. It's a bit shorter now, 55K from the 65 that it used to be a few years ago.
Yeah, I mean, they shortened a little bit after the year when it was so cold, and the reason is mainly to move the start to a warmer location, because the short start we had is, if it is cold, it is kind of a cold spot, if we say like that. So that's the reason. And still remember that it's almost 2,000 meters, so 55K might sound short, but it's much longer due to the altitude, I would like to say. And no, it's a fantastic Diagonela in the Engadin Valley. It's I've said it before, for me it's one of the, if not the most beautiful winter destinations in the world. It's definitely up there. So I'm very lucky and fortunate, and all of us working with Ski Classics to go to such beautiful places, because they really all are, I would say. So now Diagonela is one of the favorites for me.
And it's been, as I said, it's been a calendar for so long that it should soon be Grand Classics, I think, because it's always there. But Emilia, you mentioned that Pustertal is a tough race. What about Engadin? Kind of a similar race, high altitude, fast pace?
Yeah, it is, but you have the altitude, so the pace is maybe a little bit slower, so it won't be that you won't get that high speed for for much of the race. But as David said, it's a really beautiful place to ski. It's my favorite place to ski, and that's the main thing. It's really beautiful, but also it's a good atmosphere up in the to the finish line. It's cool to race there in the small city, going into the finish line there. So it's a really nice race.
I mean, if you have a little bit extra time there, you can go to Samoritz and you can go and try to do bobsleigh. I tried it actually a couple of years ago, and it was really cool to go this 4-man bobsleigh with that was high speed feeling.
And also, Emilie, what can be tricky about the race is the cold, sometimes cold conditions and dry snow. That the snow can be really slow there as well.
Yeah, it can be really slow, and when you were racing in the altitude, you maybe won't get the best experience, because or not the best experience, but you won't feel like you're skiing that in that high pace. So it is tough in its way that the snow can be cold and slow, and you have the altitude as well. So it's like David says, 55K doesn't sounds that long, but it is tough race because of the altitude and sometimes the conditions.
And then week after that, January 28th, another classic race, an actual Grand Classic one, the first one, and a legendary race, Machalonga, the Long March 70K race. Again, so much has been said about this race, but for some reason it's always could be even the number one race in the world in terms of whenever you ask people, they often come up with either Machalonga or Vasaloppet. So again, David, you've been working with the guys for so long, Machalonga organizers. What makes this race so special?
Yeah, I think there's a reason why they call it the Queen of the Alps. I think it's first of all, the atmosphere around with all the small villages, the passing, the course is really exciting, and then that you actually finish. Of course, the Cascata before the finish going uphill is kind of it's one of the iconic climbs, but actually to come to Cavaliers and cross the finish line, it's a lot of people. It's really like a folk fest feeling there. And for some reason, it's more or less always sun in Marcialonga. And being in January, and for us being from Scandinavia, to come to actually have almost, I don't know if Emilie agree, but like a spring feeling in January, that makes it a little bit special, that you feel like you're getting happy of the sun. So no, Marcialonga is really a must for everyone.
So Emilie, indeed, I mean, the atmosphere, do you guys have time to soak it up? You're racing, but do you get to feel it?
Yes, absolutely, and agree with David. Yeah, you get that spring feeling. It's really nice to go down to the you get this it's warmer, it's lighter. You get this spring feeling. So yeah, you kind of get energy racing and being around in that area. So it's a special atmosphere before and in the race and after. It's really nice.
So from an athlete's perspective, when you compare that race to to those before, we talked about Enkari and Pustertaler. What about this one? That is definitely a high-paced race because of the conditions and the course.
Absolutely. Marcialonga is a really hard race, and it's 70K, so it's long, and you get a really hard start with all the uphills in the beginning, and then you get a really high pace from after 20K and down to the last hill. So that is a really hard race. It's a really fun race because you ski through all these small towns, and you feel the energy around the course, and it's a really, really cool race.
And then after that, there's a bit of a break, about 2 weeks, and then another Grand Classics race in the Czech Republic. He says Kaparesatka, that's a 50K race. But before we get to that, speaking of breaks, Emilie, how important is it for you guys? Because when we look at the calendar, once again, there are 3 races back to back. But how important is for you guys to have a break, because you need to train somewhere as well and some time?
I think maybe the breaks is most important to actually get home and get some rest from being traveling and being away. But it's also you can you have to train sometimes in the winter. But I think most of the athletes actually train a lot, but in between races as well. So I think it's most to get home and get a break from being from traveling, actually.
So Jiselska Padesatka meaning Jiselska 50. That's in the Czech Republic. That'll be on Sunday, February 11th. So David, again, this is, you mentioned the kind of the folk fest. This race often being described as a folk fest type of, with a great atmosphere, a little bit different from the Central European ones. But what would you say about
I mean,
this?
since it is a Grand Classic, it's a big event. I actually had a record last year with over 9,000 participants, and it's an A to B event, so it's a lot of people in the same start and finish area, like packed together, and I'm very impressed by the LOC, the organizer, and the team around there, that they have over the years managed to improve it step by step, and it's a really, really cool atmosphere. And I think when you go home from Jiserska, me always driving the electric car back to Sweden, then I sit in the car and I felt like a little bit like, wow, that was really like a high atmosphere feeling of the Bedřichov event area. And what's cool with Jiserska also, because we spoke about our distances, but actually we have even shorter distances than 10K, because in Jiserska every year they have a Friday event, which is kind of the sprint, and it's super popular. It goes on Czech TV, so we're every year thinking, should we have it part of the Pro Tour? But since it's a travel day, we have not gone there yet. But it's still really fun to see a lot of our skiers and pro teams do that sprint, because it's a cool sprint and a different kind of sprint that you normally see. So that, or maybe a super sprint at a finish area day before the race, would maybe be something to make another flavor of the tour someday.
So Emilie, what are you usually thinking when you're driving back after Jiserska? What are you taking home from that race?
Jiserska is one of my favorite races, most because that was the first time I was on the podium. But it's a really nice atmosphere there as well. It's so many people that really loves to ski, and as David says, it's all these different races with the sprint and the shorter distance. Like, it's a lot of people that are actually racing that weekend, so it's a lot of people and a really good atmosphere. So, and it's like a tough race, more kind of a lot of action in that race. So it's a good race.
And a tough course too, because a long climb at the beginning, another one later on. But then after that race, then the weekend after, February 17th and 18th, Krönklit Classic and Krönklit ITT in Sweden, in Orsa, those two races. That was in the calendar last year as well, David. So I assume feedback's been really good since it's still there.
Definitely, and I mean the Saturday race, which is called the Krönklit Classic, and it's a little bit different, because the weekend or 2 weekends after we have a Vasaloppet, which is a long 90K in the same region of Sweden, A to B. And this is something completely different. A lot of twists and turns, small up and downs. So it's completely opposite, I can say, to what Vasaloppet is, which I think makes it also interesting, that you don't feel it has its own idea, I would say. So, and for me personally, I grew up in the Stockholm area. I traveled a lot up to Grönklit, and I think Swedish Stockholm people, so to say, in general, go there just to train. So it's very, very cool to have Grönklit part, because I know it's in Norway they have so many great places to ski, but in the southern Sweden there's not that many to choose from, and it's kind of our equivalent to Hafjäll or to Sjusjön in Sweden, and to show that to the world, it's for me personally quite cool. So I think the event was good, and the ITT except that we have some timing issues, which still makes me not sleep at night. But still, it was I think also a great event. So I think we keep it, and we're very happy with it.
And then you, Emilie, what do you think about those two races? They are, as David just said, only 2 weeks before Vasaloppet, the one that you won last year.
Yes, David said it's quite opposite from the Vasaloppet, but I think Orsa was a really great experience to race a longer race there, and I think most of the athletes thought that the course wouldn't be that tough. I think like the men race was a really hard race, and for us women as well. So I think it was a really good experience to race there, and I think it's I'm happy with going back there for the next season.
And you would say training-wise, it's good to have those two races 2 weeks before Vasaloppet, and also have a short one, the ITT there.
Absolutely, I think it's a nice way to load for the Vasaloppet.
Speaking
and
of
many skiers also stay there because there's Tjejvasan between. So we saw this year that the French team, for example, they stayed in the area to keep training and being there for also Tjejvasan, which is in the between there. So yeah.
Good point, indeed. And speaking of Vasaloppet, that'll be next. And we already mentioned the two-week window there between the Krönklit and Vasaloppet. Sunday, that'll be March 3rd. It's always the first Sunday in March. Vasaloppet, 90K. I mean, Emilie, let's start with you. I mean, you won the race last year. What do you want to say about Vasaloppet that hasn't been said yet?
I don't know if it's much more to say, but I think this year Vasaloppet was a different experience for me. I think racing there for like my first times has been like the toughest race of the season. It's 90K. It's with the start with the guys. It goes so fast from the start. But this year I raced. I stayed after Grönklit and I raced Tjejvasan, and I stayed there to prepare. So I felt much more prepared this year than I has been doing the last years. So I think it was good mentally for me to race the Tjejvasan and to be there and test the course and to just prepare mentally, and it went well.
So, David, this race is often called the king of the ski races, but what's the importance of Vasaloppet being part of the whole tour?
I mean, it's a huge importance not only for the tour but for cross-country skiing in general, because it's a driver in well, of course, especially in Sweden, but also internationally for having over 60,000 a normal year, so to say, participant in 1 week. So it's not only the main race on Sunday, but it's races every day. So I would say that Vasaloppet is kind of the engine of the sport, especially in Sweden, that keeps people training and setting up goals for normal people and recreation skiers like you and me, or at least me. Teemu, you're quite unnormal as well. So maybe it's only me who's quite normal, I guess. Yeah, but Vasaloppet is of course it is. If you ask the skiers, I would say 9 out of 10 would say it's the most prestigious event in the tour.
And then probably the next one, Birkebeiner-Rennet, is right after that. Vasaloppet is number one, then Birken second, which is then 2 weeks after Vasaloppet, March 16th. That'll be Saturday, actually. 54-kilometer race, tough course. Let's start with you, Emilie, since you are from Norway. What's the importance? What does the race mean to you, being a Norwegian, and having a race like that in a calendar?
It kind of means a lot because Birkebeiner-Rennet is one of the races I raced before I started in ski classic. So it's always been there, and it's huge for a Norwegian too. It's the first race back home in Norway, so it's it's nice. First of all, it's nice to get home to race, to be able to race in Norway, and but also it's a really tough race with the start and with the backpack. So it's a different race because of the because of the backpack. And it's really fun to race faster, and it can be really tough to not be in your best shape there as well. So it's a cool race.
It is definitely a cool race, and so many things have happened. David, when you think about Birkebeiner and all the history of it, it's been part of Ski Classics ever since the beginning. Your greatest memories from Birken?
Well, I have like good and bad memories. One good is to see Petter Eliasen against, against Martin Jonsson Sundby, when there was a little bit like opening eyes how good the skiers have become in double pooling at that time. That was one thing. Then I think the year or year before, year after, I would say because our skido hit Martin Jonsson Sundby, he was leading, so that was kind of a traumatic situation where we actually hit one of the skiers with the skido, and it could have been so. I'm so happy that it didn't go worse for Martin. So that's kind of two of my memories. Then of course also from last season when Therese Johaug and Astrid Eiris-Lind had this battle, I think also opened eyes in terms of the female ski, maybe a little bit how extremely good Emilie and Ida and Astrid and the skiers in the Tour are, that actually see it. Because still we are, after all, even if we don't compare ourselves to traditional, we're still a younger sport in terms of Ski Classics, only on the 15th season. So we still have, still a lot of eyes to open. So we still have to work hard to make more people see us. So no, but Birken it's a great event and a great place to be.
And then after Birken, the tour remains in Norway. Reistaløype and Summit to Senja next. Of course, there's a bit of a break since Birken takes place on Sunday, March 16th, and then Reistaløype is April 6th. There's a bit of a break there. Reistaløype and Summit to Senja, those two races back to back, 50k, 60k. Good feedback from people, I assume, David or David. Two great races, but tough weekend.
Yeah, I mean, as we said, maybe before we started the podcast, when we talked about Summit to Senja became, of course, the event of the season. So it was appreciated, and a new addition last year to the tour that actually was something we have worked on for some time. And to actually be able to have both Reistaløype on Saturday and testing a little bit, the possibility to have two tough races in a row, and it turned quite well out. And to go actually down to the fjord area in Finnsnes, seeing Senja on the other side, I was sitting there after the finish waiting for some whale jumping. I didn't find anyone, but I was still looking for it, and it felt it could come any moment. So just to get in that nature experience, it's you have to pinch yourself in the arm and just remember it, because it's so easy to take things for given. So amazing destination. Those who haven't been there really must just go there, because it's worth traveling for so many reasons there.
And Emilie, what do you want to say about those two races, and how tough was it really?
It was really tough, most because of in Reiseløpet I went with a wax. It was different, and my legs were really tired before the Sunday. But as David says, the weather on Sunday, it was amazing, and it was an amazing race, a quite experience. So I tried to enjoy it. Still, I was tired, but a tough weekend for sure.
And then what about the Summit to Senja, to finish in that location, the beautiful place?
It was super beautiful, and it was real cool to get down there and get skiing down to the fjord. It's super beautiful, and and with all the people cheering, and it was really cool.
And then finally, the last race. All these other races been around in one form or another, but the grand finale, Janteloppet in Norway. That's the Petter Northug's own race. But how did this come about, David? This race, and what about that? A lot of people outside of Norway don't really know that much about this race.
Yeah, I would say first, from our point of view, the grand finale concept which we introduced this winter is something new, and a grand finale is, for those interesting in theaters or other kind of stage shows. It's when the play is over, all the stars, our athletes, come up on stage one more time to get the the feeling from the audience and all the applause and all that. So for us to have a little bit like you see in Tour de France in Champs-Élysées, or maybe you can have also wrapping up like you see in the Ironman of when they go all the way to Hawaii for the final event, or UTMB in running, they go, you qualify to be able to part of the last event. So that's a little bit about looking at the grand finale. There's both this like fireworks where you feel like, oh, it's end the season in style, but also to have something very special, and it's a 100K race. So the first. This year, the first one over at 100K, but it's going to be loops. So it's going to be 5 times 20K. So it's not like the normal ski classics. Like the first one of the prologue is not the normal, the protein tempo. The grand finale in Janteloppet is also going to be a little bit different, and we do it on purpose to kind of get where maybe the yellow bib is probably maybe decided like in Tour de France the weekend before, but all the protein competition, the sprint competition, and is open, and the prestigiousness to win the event, since the 100K race will grow over time, I think, to become something very special. And we're launching. We will get back more during the fall about the concept, but I can give you a teaser: is that we're gonna have a qualification format where recreation skiers, to be part of the 100K race, you have to, if you fulfill a certain criteria, which could be that you are, doing one of the pro tours in 50% of the addition to the winning time of your gender, or maybe 2 challengers of that, or that you're in, for example, the top 1,000 position in Ski Classics ranking, then you get a ticket to be able to apply for being part of the 100K race. And then, of course, those who maybe are not on that training level, like myself, for example, we can all do the 20K race, which is the shorter version, just to have one fun race before the gala kicks off at night, handing out the season prizes, etc. So, and for us, Janteloppet is Petter Northug's race, as you say. So we're proud to have the race with him, of course. And in addition, being a Hafjell, which me personally will be new to be like in an event setting to be there. And I heard a lot of good things. And I think it goes back to the Olympics in '94 for Alpine, if I'm not, probably longer than that. But I don't know, maybe Emilie can tell us more about about Hafjell, but I really look forward to it, and having a grand finale, it's kind of a nice way to end the tour.
Indeed, Emilie, I know that you need to run soon, but what about the Hafjell and the race? What are your expectations, for this one?
I think first of all, it's going to be really nice to ski there or race there in April. It's I think it's going to be beautiful to ski there and feel the spring atmosphere. Skiing 100 race in our last race for the season is going to be tough, but it's going to be. We've done that before, and it's cool to do like something spectacular. I think there's a lot of people loves to ski in that area, and people have a lot of people have cabins there, so it's going to be a lot of people coming there to, I don't know, ski or cheer or joining the last race of the season. It's going to be, I think it's going to be a really cool way to end the season for sure.
So thank you very much, Emilie. I know that you need to step out of the podcast. So thank you for joining us, and good luck. And hopefully you'll win more races next season. But David, I have a couple of questions for you still, so stay on the line. Thank you, Emilie.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yes, Emilie is going training for the 100K, so I guess she's focused.
Yeah, a lot of people need to train for that particular race. But now we've gone through the package, the whole season, upcoming one. And when you look at it now, David, you talked about Janteloppet. Great concept, by the way. What do you want to say about this season compared to the ones that we had in the past?
Those who've been around see that it's not so many changes anymore. And I think that's of purpose as well. We want to have a tour where you feel you can compare to previous season, maybe, compare winning times depending on different race conditions, weather conditions, and race, tactics, etc. So we want to have a red thread where you feel, and it's no idea to change things just to change it. If we want to, which we do, we want to have some novelties every year. We still want to have a reason to do it. So I think the long-term goal is always to make the perfect calendar, which we will never get to. But you need to have a vision that makes you continue work harder and harder, and that's where we're heading. So trying to find what's optimal calendar. And I think the feedback we got from this season 14 was that it was good weight balance over the season, that it was long and short races. Some were missing a longer race than the 90K Vasaloppet, and now we introduced back the Grand Finale and Janteloppet 100K. So then I think that's good, and I really look forward to winter. You're almost like, can we fast forward over the summer, just go to the snow directly, and then I'll be ready at least.
So based on all the experience that you have, and you just mentioned that all these different races you've been, all these different things that you've been introduced or that have been introduced to the tour, do you think that we are now at the point that this brand or this concept, Ski Classics, is pretty much where it should be? Of course, tweaks here and there, but this is pretty much kind of the vision that you had when you started out.
Yeah, in the big picture, I think we have come a long way where we feel now it's getting more and more stabilized and accepted format of sport in the winter time. So and as we all many times say, a big idea behind Ski Classics is to have a winter tour around Europe. In Tour de France or Giro d'Italia, traveling in the country summertime, but we actually do the whole continent. So we do from south to north of Europe and showing different winter landscapes, and that with the sports setting of quite cool tactical races, the 35 pro teams. I think we're getting there, but it's never going to be perfect. As I said, there's always a lot of things to improve and a lot of things, new creative ideas you can evaluate. And we have many crazy ideas in our drawers that me and Anton is looking on and, seeing what to come in the future maybe. So we have still a lot of things undone. So for sure, we're not satisfied yet, but we feel this is a good, season 15 feels like the best calendar so far.
I know that we have plenty of fans out there in America as well, and I actually happen to be a guest on one of the broadcast shows there. We talked about Ski Classics, and they always want to see a race there. Would there be a chance that Americans get their own Ski Classics race in the Pro Tour?
Definitely, it's just a matter of time, I would say. There's, as you said, some challengers races in North America and also in South America. We have the Argentinian one in Patagonia or in the Tierra del Fuego. So of course the Americas, sooner or later we must make a trip there too. We have been in Asia with China event, but sooner or later we will come there. It's just a matter to finding the right spot in the calendar and making it sustainable, and both in terms of cost and also environment. So I guess we all have something to strive for then.
That's probably going to be like a mini tour then, not just a one race, too much traveling for one race, I assume. What would you say?
We'll see about that. But of course, me personally, I love Chicago. So if you could do a city event in Chicago and then to American Birken or some race around that would be cool. That
would be really cool. Any other kind of a future things of the vision of goals that you have in mind, for Ski Classics, things to develop?
As I said before, we want to develop everything, and we're looking a little bit extra now at what cycling is doing with the community and in terms of Global Cycling Network, GCN, and we're looking a little bit extra what Ironman is doing in order to keep the flavor of the triathlon sport and some other interesting benchmarks that we are looking on. So for sure, we have some quite interesting things we're working on in our drawers, and we'll see when and if we're ready to launch it. But we have a lot more things to do with bringing the sport even higher and more the interest stronger. So we will continue fighting, and but still at the same time, where we have visions, we need to look down at the the small parts of which makes every event good, and the making quality of what we do is very important for us to look at all the details. How can we make all the small things a little bit better? Because if we look on the details, the big picture will come. So it's a lot of things, and it's just to. But at the same time, like I try to say to people when I meet them during the tour, that don't forget to pinch yourself in the arm. There was one of my directors in IC, where I was, Anders Wistra, my old boss in TV rights business. He told me when we had the trip together, David, don't forget to pinch yourself in your arm. And that's sometimes important, that you actually look up and take in what you actually have and what you are being lucky to be able to do. Because I think many people would be very, very happy to have the opportunity to see the world like we do if you work with Ski Classics. So pinch yourself in the arm, Teemu, a little bit more often.
That is a good advice. I mean, we should do that, of course. But since we're still talking about future, and we're living in this world that keeps changing, constantly changing, what about technology, AI, all that kind of stuff? And I know that you keep a close eye on that as well. How much do you think that could change sports in general and skiing?
It's of course impossible to say, but it's for sure something extremely interesting that we are going through. I would say it's a paradigm shift, that we actually will go through something that in 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you will like say that you remember the before and after. So I think what I'm seeing in the future, how it can be used in different ways, in positive sides, it's hard to say, but for sure it's an important involvement in the human beings' lives. So it'd be very interesting to follow it. And I think that there's the launch now with the Chat GPT and stuff. It's just the beginning. The AI function and what can be done through it. It's so interesting. Maybe I can have my own robot doing Marcialonga for me if I'm not trained enough when I get older. So we'll see, but it's gonna be super, super exciting. I think all like new technologies and stuff. It's very cool to be part of it, and very interesting to challenge yourself to try to maybe change the picture you have on what is how it should be, because you kind of need to open up your eyes a little bit. So what do you think, Teemu, about AI?
Pretty much what you said, but we have to be careful, of course, as a lot of people warn us about, the kind of the dangers of that. But we should keep an open eye, open and positive attitude, use it as a tool to help us for anything we do, because that's something we can't really take a step back. It will happen. AI will take over in many cases, but if you learn to live with it, learn to use it for our advantage, I think it'll be a great tool in many things in sports as well. I'm as much like you are, really excited about the future, and can wait to see things that AI and technology will enable us. So that'll be the future. But then finally, the last thing, I've always tend to ask you these things, at the end, since we have gone through the season, we know the winners from last year. So your predictions for the champion titles for next season, and the dark horses. It's always a tough one.
Yeah, if we start with the female side, for the yellow bib, it's of course the winners will always be the favorites, I would say. So of course Ida, Astrid, Emilie. So interesting to see Carina Hedenström making a huge leap this year. Great to have Jenny Larsson back, and having a tough 2 years before. So. And it's probably Magnus Meados, I shouldn't forget. So she's, of course, one of the favorites as well, carrying the yellow bib in many important races. So it's going to be super interesting to see also what new flavors may be joining, and who will take the new steps there on the female side. So can Carolina Hedenström be able to take one more giant leap? Then she's top there. So, but it should take a little bit longer time, I guess. But so I would say that those are among the favorites for yellow in the women's side. In the men's side, wow, what a season Emil Persson had. So I guess no one else see themselves as the favorite after what Emil has done. Of course, he is the main candidate for the yellow bib once again. But I see Andreas Nygård, the revenge, so to say, in a positive way in his eyes. When wanted to show his capability of when he is have the good training season, etc. So that battle between Nygård and Emil Persson, I think, will be super fun to follow. And then, of course, a lot of very good skiers around and younger as well coming up. So it's gonna be a really exciting season to see for the yellow bib.
It was also interesting to see Astrid Rödes-Lind doing so well, both in ski classics and in the World Cup circuit as well. What do you think is the importance of that? Because I know, working also for that side a little bit, a lot of people were surprised, about her, performance at World Cup as well. But what's kind of your take on that?
It shows how great skiers it is in ski classics, how well trained they are, and that. In Astrid's case, quite. I mean, don't get me wrong; she's still very young. But compared to cross-country skiers in the World Cup, she's a little bit older. And to actually be in the first World Championship at, I think, the age of 35, I think that's and showing that she's she's not there to participate; she's there to take medals. That's super cool to see. And as you said, in a distance where maybe our long-distance skiers. We're very happy to wherever our skiers want to go, if it's World Cup or World Championship. What we want with Ski Classic is to make dreams come alive. And if Astrid's dream is to do World Champ, of course we're super happy to see her be able to achieve her dreams. So that's kind of what our goal from Ski Classic side is, to create a platform where the skiers can achieve their dreams. And then if it's within our arena or not, that doesn't matter. It's the better skiers we can have in the tour, and the better skiers get over time. It's super fun to follow, and for sure the pro teams we saw it in the Swedish Premier Weekend in Bruksvallarna, where there's a lot of skiers normally do long distance, performing in shorter, even skate races, and so we see that the pro teams are doing a really, really good work with their athletes and the coaches there as well to gain the quality, because it's really high quality. It is a tough competition to win a Ski Classics race, and that's just getting higher and higher every year. So it's very fun to follow, and from our side, the more cross-country skiing, the better. It doesn't matter if it's short or long or so. Even if we maybe like the longer a little bit more, but still we also like to see, for example, the World Cup or so. We like all cross-country skiing.
Kind of follow up to that, do you expect to see more World Cup skiers in Ski Classic races next season, as there is no Olympic Games or World Championships next year?
Yeah, all skiers. I don't categorize them as Ski Classics or World Cup skiers or so, because if they like to do races, they will definitely, if they're good enough, they will find a pro team that will pick them up, and then everyone is welcome. Just the more better skiers, the better, no matter what background or whatever they have. It's just we're very happy to see everyone being welcome to doing Ski Classics. That's part of our DNA.
And as a last thing, you just mentioned the Ski Classics being a platform for dreams, or to fulfill your dreams. And I know that regular skiers, the amateur skiers, are also important for you and for Ski Classics. A word for them, kind of a word of encouragement for them, so they can join the fun as well.
But Manchester United always call the home place arena as the theater of dreams. I think maybe ski classic is the adventure dreams, that you actually have this adventure to travel around Europe to see different aspects of life, not only skiing, but it's, traveling, it's restaurants, cafes, it's nice locations, beautiful sights, views, etc. So it's so many things in around what's happening on the weekend with the race, and all around this, it's it's definitely worth an entire journey, as to say, being a 3-star Michelin guide restaurant. I mean, that's what I hope our both recreation and pro team athletes feel, that it's, being part of the Ski Classic store, it's worth the entire journey. That would be satisfying if we come to that position.
Great final words, for this podcast. Thank you very much, David, and good luck. I think it'll be a great season, this upcoming one. And we'll see, as always, a lot of drama, great races, and wonderful moments. So thank you very much for being part of this.
Thank you, Teemu. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. And you guys stay tuned for upcoming episodes and also more things to come on our social media sites. Take care and see you guys soon, and have a great summer. Bye-bye. This podcast is a W Sports Media production.